Magic prices are going crazy right now, but we can counter that by focusing on singles. We can actually take a step further beyond that by paying attention to what everybody's focused on right now and looking backwards, focusing on what everyone's already lost interest in. I've got some sweet singles picked out to show you today that I think might be worth your attention or even a purchase. And let's start with Morophon the Boundless. This version is from Commander Masters. Now, this is a card that debuted in Modern Horizons 1. This was a card that, because of scarcity and playability, it got up to nearly $30 at one point. Now, it had a significant reprint in Commander Masters with what I call the full parfait. We got 3 different treatments here in addition to the base level version here. Morophon the Boundless is a 7-mana 6/6 shapeshifter with changeling, meaning it's every creature type. As it enters, you actually choose a creature type, and then further, spells of the chosen type you cast cost WUBRG less to cast. This effect reduces only the amount of colored mana you pay. Other creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. So if you've never tried or you're not aware of this commander, let's say you had a creature with green, red, and 2 as its cost. If you've got Morophon on the battlefield and that creature's creature type is named, that spell would only cost you 2 generic mana because the green and the red has been reduced out of the total WUBRG cost reduction. Really fun commander for underplayed or undersupported creature types. If you're looking for a good commander for a creature type that you've looked around and said, man, there's not a good commander for this, there's not really good support for this creature type, but I really want to play it in a deck, Morophon is your best choice. In fact, if you've built a Morophon deck with like an under-the-radar creature type that you think has worked, not one with a ton of support or like a specific commander basically already, but something that's under the radar, let us know down in the comments. At this point, having been a nearly $30 card and now in that $4 to $5 range, I could see it sort of settling out here and the risk being fairly low if you've ever considered a Morophon and you want to grab a copy. Joel R. Magic is brought to you by Card Conduit, the best place to sell your cards quickly and easily on the internet. TCG players, the best place to go and buy them, have stores compete for your wallet. Dragon Shield's the absolute best way to protect them. Tons of sleeves and accessories over at Dragon Shield. And Moxfield, the best way to put your deck lists on the internet. Rottenmouth Viper came across my radar recently. This 6-mana 6/6 elemental snake lets you sacrifice any number of non-land permanents as an additional cost of casting it to reduce the overall cost of Rottenmouth Viper by 1 generic for each permanent you sacrifice this way. There are commander decks where this will basically always be a 1-mana creature. Its other ability says whenever Rottenmouth Viper enters or attacks, put a blight counter on it. Then for each blight counter on it, each opponent loses 4 life unless they sack a non-land permanent or discard a card. If you can proliferate those counters, this can absolutely get insane. Anything that's blinking, entering, multiple attack steps, Rottenmouth Viper is very good for a couple of different archetypes. However, it has been fairly up there and growing. I think a lot of people early on overhyped it. You can see that this was just one of the most absolutely overhyped mythics out of the gate. We don't give a ton of credence to that, but after it rebounded and started going up, we thought maybe it was going to find a home. However, this card has just fallen, and now it's down into that $5 range. Most of the Bloomborough stuff that was going to move significantly has already moved, and so with Rottenmouth Viper, you're entering a good window for a pretty sweet sacrifice creature if you want to pick it up for your 99. From the commander decks of Brothers War, we got Titania, Nature's Force. Green players have been looking at this card for a while. You can see that it was gaining popularity for a while. 6-mana 6/6 elemental says you can play forest from your graveyard. Whenever a forest enters the battlefield under your control, create a 5/3 token. And whenever an elemental, which is what you are creating, you control, dies, you may mill 3 cards, sort of resetting that entire cycle there of playing forest from our graveyard, getting 5/3s. Great card for the land graveyard strategy decks, and most of those, nearly all of those, I think, have green. Cards like Lumra, you're sacrificing lands, bringing them all back. Scape Shift is kind of one of the main plays there, and a lot of landfall. Anyway, this card has fallen significantly. This was up near $15 for a commander deck card, a solo commander deck card. You can see no other printing. Got up to around 20, and now it's down into that 6 range. It's as low as it's ever been if you wanted to grab a copy of this if you've been proxying it or something. This one's crazy to talk about. Liliana of the Veil from Dominaria United is down to around $10 or $11. This isn't even the cheapest copy. This is the cheapest copy, but most people don't want this copy. I don't think they like the art. compared to our newest version here of Liliana of the Veil from Dominaria United. Y'all, this is such a boomer card for me. I am an MTG boomer up and down because I remember when this card was over $100 because we only had the Innistrad version and the card was competitive as hell. And we had this piece from Steve Argyle. I just don't really comprehend this card being around the $10 range now. This one doesn't have a ton of commander applicability. I very rarely, if ever, see somebody play Liliana of the Veil in commander, but if for some reason kitchen table, constructed, whatever you were trying to do with Liliana of the Veil, this is the best it's ever been. It's a very powerful card, fun to play if you really want to experience some especially boomer MTG power. It's a great range for pickup at this point, very low risk. Let's take it back to Duskmourn for a second and look at Walk-In Closet. We were just talking about the green decks that play with lands from their graveyard with stuff like Crucible of Worlds and Self-Mill. Walk-In Closet / Forgotten Cellar is one such card that definitely goes in that deck. The left side, 1 green and 2 other for an enchantment that says you can play lands from your graveyard. That's Crucible of Worlds. That's just a remake of a card that exists, so that makes it redundancy in that deck. You want to have both so that it increases your odds of drawing it and playing it. The other half of this says Forgotten Cellar, 5 mana. When you unlock this door, you can cast spells from your graveyard this turn, and if a card would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. That's so that you can't just loop it and cast the same spell 5 times, however much you have mana for, with Forgotten Cellar's ability. This one, as you can see, was over $10 for this mythic. We were up in the $15 range. It has come down significantly since this set has released, and we have all moved on from it. That's really the idea here, is watch these sets that have come and gone that nobody's thinking about anymore, especially if you waited on some card prices. I'm always getting the question, when's the right time to buy? Early, late? Do I wait? When do I wait? How long? You want to watch them. You want to watch them over the next 6 months of that set coming out. Sometimes cards can start climbing up in that next 60 days. Sometimes it takes more, like 4 or 5 months. But this is essentially what you're waiting for with some of these playable mythics from these sets that start up in that $15, $20 range that you don't think are going to pop off like crazy. You've got newer sets like Tarkir releasing cards like Ugin or Elspeth, and looking at those mythics, you might want to judge those more on a case-by-case basis if you think they are going to have a very long dip. They'll probably have some kind of dip, but judging time on that is always difficult, especially for the most playable multi-format all-star kind of cards. Not every mythic is going to fall into that category, though, and so a lot of times you can save yourself 10, 20 bucks by waiting for that mythic that's 15 to 25, whatever, to fall down into a range exactly like this. It's hard to keep up with, though, so if you will subscribe to the channel, I'll try my best to keep you up to date on great pickup windows for cards. And let me tell you what a great pickup window looks like. It looks like Emrakul the World Anew. This card, look at this. For a while, this was above 70. We had the set come out and it dropped to around that 40 range, and then we've just been on a slow decline since then. We are around $7 at this point, y'all. Emrakul the World Anew from Modern Horizons is a 12 mana, 12/12 Eldrazi. It says when you cast it, gain control of all creatures target player controls. It's got flying, protection from spells and from permanents that were cast this turn. When it leaves the battlefield, you have to sack all creatures you control. And it's got a madness cost of 6 colorless mana. $7.50 for an insane Eldrazi. This one is a note for me. I don't have a copy of this. For some reason, I got out of Modern Horizons 3 without ever having grabbed a copy of The World Anew. I've been patient. It's down to $7. My Eldrazi deck is going to love their new mommy arriving for a little bit of Pain Train action. And let's continue the Pain Train with Emrakul the Promised End from Innistrad Remastered. It's probably time to start looking at Innistrad Remastered. We're a little bit removed. We're enough removed, I'll say, from it at this point, with Aether Drift having come and gone, and now we're well into Tarkir Dragonstorm. I think that it's a good window opening up soon for Innistrad Remastered cards. I was surprised at some of the prices that I saw when I went and looked at that. It might be time, too, for a video on the channel of like a 30-day, 60-day look back, something like that, of the entire set. But calling out 2 specific cards from the set, starting with Emrakul the Promised End. This is down around that $20 range at this point. You can see that line is pretty straight. It is falling, but not by much. And that's kind of an indicator that maybe it's going to start tilting up again. You've got the retro frame. I personally really love this treatment. There's been a lot of people that do not. You can see it's actually the cheapest version of this that you can pick up right now. I provided the base copy here. It's not the cheapest by like $1 or $2. All-time high of nearly $100 for the Eldritch Moon copy here. You can see released way back in 2016, 2017, and we have had various spikes at various times, correlating most likely with other Eldrazi or Eldrazi precons, as you can see, getting released. Emrakul the Promised End is in a pretty good window. This is a well-played, well-loved, mythic, big bomb creature, and so getting this down to like $15 to pick up a base copy of the reprint from Innistrad Remastered, it's possible, but at this point, I think you're in a safe window of low risk to grab it and just never look at the price again. Staying on Innistrad Remastered for one more card, it's Daddy Markov. It's time to discuss the Edgar Markov of it all. Did you grab one of these from the set? Are you still waiting? Do you still want one? Has everybody who wanted a Markov grabbed a Markov? That's what I was telling everybody to wait on. When should I buy an Edgar? Wait until everybody who wants one has bought one. The price will bottom out and then it'll start to climb again as we get further from Innistrad Remastered. We got the Parfait over here. We do have a retro version that is actually the cheapest possible copy right now of Edgar Markov. If you like the retro, you're in luck. You can spend less and get a copy of this card. $25 market for the retro right now. Your base copy, you're looking at like $36. I'll note right now, sets that have most recently come out, look at that foil price on there. Your market of $36.18 and your foil of $41. Especially early on, the foil multiplier doesn't really start to take effect. And when you think about how much this was a collector product as well, there may be more foils of Edgar Markov out in the wild. All I'm really trying to say, all of that was speculation. My point is, there's not a huge gap between market non-foil and foil price. If you go and look at it and it doesn't look like it's going to curl in your region, wherever you're located at on our globe, and whatever that area you live in does to foil cards bendiness, you might want to pick up a copy of that because it's not that much more expensive to have Markov Daddy in your army leading a huge swarm of vampires. I looked all the way back to the big score for this because that Outlaws of Thunder Junction big score has just kind of been on my mind. I wish the cards had been more available. There's some cool cards in there I still don't have because they've been expensive. One of those is Sword of Wealth and Power. This one took everybody by storm when it came out, and from all I've heard, it's still a really fun, casual commander card. 3 mana for this equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from instants and sorceries, and whenever an equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you create a treasure, and then when you next cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, you get to copy it. Just straight up. It's a huge ability. It's a mythic sword. These will get reprinted as ways to push premium sets or give a chase in like a special guest slot or something to further push sets. So we will see these cards again, I would assume. That is going to be the time when those prices significantly fall. However, big score to me is a pretty wide set of cards that are good and need reprints. And so it's hard for me to say, oh yeah, this was a year or two ago, so we're definitely going to get it in another year or two, right? Which would be the normal kind of 4 or 5 years. Things start getting pretty imminent for a reprint for them to pull that lever to sell a set. Right now, $17 seems like a pretty good price to me for a Sword of Wealth and Power, especially considering I never thought this was going to get below like 30, being they were all mythics from that set. God, that set's so confusing and weird. But as you can see, there's only other versions. You've got your extended, and you've got the sort of premium version, which is only around $44 right now itself. So if you want the showcase version here, it's not going to be that much more than the base copy started out or got to immediately. Or if you just want to grab a copy, a real copy for your decks, $17 will get you one right now. And then the Verges. I want to talk about this entire cycle. They were brought to my attention by the Aether Drift prices. I just took sort of a cursory glance through Aether Drift to see if there was anything that had fallen off majorly. Radiant Lotus is one of those cards, but I didn't cover that one because I didn't want everybody to get riled up about Radiant Lotus again. I did notice the Verge lands in that set have fallen or are starting to retrace a little bit, and so you might want to grab them. The thing with the Verges is that they're going to be standard legal for somewhere between 17 and 22 years. So people are always going to want like 2 to 4 of them for standard decks. If they start breaking out into Pioneer, people are going to want even more if they start breaking out into Modern, and you just go from there. They're also pretty good in Commander. I like them a lot. I've tested them across all my decks. I love them in there, especially like 3-color decks where you've got, you know, you're consistently going and getting your Triomes or your Shocks or any of your lands that have land types. You got more chances to hit the right land type if you got more lands with land types, which makes sense. But 2-color decks, obviously, they're going to crush. They're just great dual lands. Right now, Bleachbone Verge around $7.50. You can see these got down really low right after release, around $3 or $4, but that started retracing pretty fast. They debuted around 20. That's a completely ridiculous price. But you've also got your Commander version, I'll say, your Borderless, if you like Borderless cards. The Borderless here, showcase looking land, which would be the one that I would go for, around $9. I like that price right now, and I'm afraid that because of all of the stuff that they are legal and good in, that they're just going to continue to go up. I'll show you. This is the most expensive one from Duskmourn. So there were 5 released in Duskmourn, and there were 5 released in Aetherdrift. The 5 in Duskmourn have, as you can see, started to climb up like I was describing. They debuted high, they plummeted on release, and then they started growing almost immediately. They just are going slowly up. You can see it's not a continuous upward trend, but you put a dot over here and you put a dot over here, we got an angle like that. I could see these doing this, just slowly gaining more and more value over the next umpteen years until these are reprinted. This is Flood Farm Verge, the second most expensive one. Also, you can see the trend here. We're creeping up into that $10 range as more people need 4-ofs for their constructed decks. And that, I think, is why I'm so like, I'm just going to go ahead and grab the Verges right now instead of waiting for them to fall back down to like a $5 range, which they probably will be at some point way in the future when they're like, maybe they get printed in precons. That would kill my entire theory here. They show up in like a Masters set as the, you know, Commander lands in there, or even as a booster pack land to sell sets because they've let them get up into that $15 to $20 range. I don't know what the future is on these, but the long standard season's kind of making me assess them personally different, so I just wanted to share that with you. This is all 10 of the Verges in order of price, the most expensive being Gloomlake Verge, and the least expensive being Sunbillow Verge from Aetherdrift. I do like these as a just total package pickup right now. Your most expensive one at $12.59, and then all the Aetherdrift ones, this one as low as $4 now. Just grabbing these and having these for my binder is something that I want to do right now. Probably a couple of copies of each of one, just so that I've got them for my decks and I don't have to wait and watch and worry about whether or not these are going to get printed into a precon or they're just going to keep climbing and I'm going to have to find a place to grab on at some point. It's a good time to grab the real thing here if you want it. If you want to get involved with our community on a deeper level, go join the Patreon. We've got a community night every Thursday night where we play Commander together, and there's a town hall. Come through and see if our community is a good fit for you. Lots of rewards over there as well. And as always, if you like this video and you haven't subscribed yet, subscribing is the best way to tell me to make more videos like this and get notified of the ones that I drop. I appreciate y'all. We'll talk to you in the next one.